Good evening. Good evening. Hello. It is my great honor and pleasure to welcome you to this celebration of Professor Richard Daynard's more than 5 decades (51.5 years to be exact). 52.5 years. I stand corrected by the good professor. At Northeastern University School of Law. Dick came to the law school back when they used bells to start and end the class. And that's literally, he's shaking his head, it's literal, okay? Thankfully, the bells went away a long time ago, but Dick stayed on to help us grow from a fledgling operation to the outstanding law school and community of colleagues we are today. As you all know, Dick's accomplishments are extraordinary. You will hear from a variety of former students, friends, and colleagues about all that Dick has meant to them over the course of their association with him. From the pioneering days, when pretty much everyone thought there was no legal means to hold the tobacco industry accountable, to his landmark wins, to founding the Tobacco Products Liability Project, to serving as president of the Public Health Advocacy Institute, to his newest initiative, the Center for Public Health Litigation. Dick has shown us all how the law can be used to fight our worst epidemics and to sustain our greatest public interest goals. Dick, I want to thank you personally for all that you have meant to our School of Law over the course of 5 decades, +2, including completing the technology circle, teaching a hybrid course, both in person and in Zoom, a long ways from bells, right? In the midst of a pandemic, heroic work. Tonight is a celebration of the big wins and, just as importantly, the smaller moments, Dick. You have been a leader in our law school community, within our university and across the globe. You embody the best of our law school. What we strive to do, produce lawyers with the values, beliefs, and drive to change the world. Thank you, Dick. And now a video in honor of Dick.
He was David versus Goliath.
He's understated.
He's about making things happen.
Not only a great lawyer, but a great person.
Dick is a man of action.
He impacted the world, he impacted students, he impacted the community, and he impacted me.
So I was in a class that entered the new Northeastern Law School class in 1973. Dick Daynard was my contracts teacher. Anyone who could find humor in contracts was someone I wanted to know better.
We were smokers, and we smoked in the classroom. Dick's instinct at the time was not to confront those people in the classes that smoked, but rather to create and to begin a dialogue on the rights of smokers versus the rights of people who were subjected to secondhand smoke.
When I was a student of his, I came in thinking you're gonna help people as a lawyer, one client at a time. He really changed my thinking about that, you know, you can use the law and logic and creativity to help populations.
I think our friendship was cemented one night when I took the tea with him as it was getting dark. I'm sitting there with Dick, and on come these local toughs, and they're smoking. And Dick, of course, in his very polite but firm way, says, "Could you put out your cigarettes, please?" And I'm sort of hiding under the seat by that point, because I did want to live through the tram ride. But even there, you know, he took them on. All of us have opinions of things we'd like changed. The difference is Dick Daynard actually went out and did it.
This morning in your written statement and your oral statement, you compared cigarettes to coffee, tea, sweets, sugar, warm milk, cheese, chocolate, and Twinkies. That's quite a list. I'm struck by what I think is a calculated attempt to trivialize the devastating health impacts of your product.
Well, in early 1994, I think a lot of things that Dick had been working on around the tobacco industry and the legal fight came together, sort of a confluence of events. One of them was the Waxman hearings, where the CEOs of all 7 cigarette companies at the time came before Congress and blatantly and obviously lied before Congress.
I believe nicotine is not addictive.
I believe that nicotine is not addictive. I believe that nicotine is not addictive.
The tobacco industry was Goliath. You never challenged them for anything. They were just so powerful. The fact that anybody would try to challenge their power and their influence was unheard of, particularly from a legal point of view.
The rules of litigation, the rules of civil or criminal litigation, should not be changed for the benefit of the tobacco companies.
So Dick was David. He was David versus Goliath. And when he first started articulating this strategy, everyone said, "Oh, this is just not going to work," and go away. But he persevered. He brought evidence and power.
The litigation that Dick was so influential in creating and facilitating resulted in tobacco companies being held legally responsible for the very first time. The new wave of tobacco litigation that Dick made possible, particularly the states suing the industry for medical costs, brought the companies to the negotiating table.
Litigation is uniquely capable of getting through all the things we haven't thought about, all the tricks the tobacco companies can come up with that we haven't figured out, but they're busy working on right now, and come in and say, "No, that's fraudulent. You know, that's negligent. You failed your standard of ordinary care there. You SOBs," use their language, "you did it again. And we're not going to let you get away with that."
At a time when it really did look impossible, he took on the tobacco companies very early, helped develop the strategy, the evidence, the political push to really change the world. It's extraordinary.
In 1998, the Master Settlement Agreement was the largest civil litigation settlement in U.S. history. Essentially, the biggest cigarette companies in the United States agreed to change the way they marketed their products. No billboards, no cartoons, no sports sponsorships, and they also agreed to pay many billions of dollars to state governments in perpetuity.
Yeah, so the Master Settlement Agreement was a great example of Dick's power and influence. So when that Master Settlement Agreement was announced, it was a stunning chapter in public health history and showed the power of litigation for the good.
And it really was a David versus Goliath situation. And soon it became not a David, the anti-tobacco forces, against Goliath, the tobacco companies, but soon it became the Goliath of the assault on tobacco by Dick and his team against big tobacco, which now wasn't so big and wasn't so scary.
Today is a milestone in the long struggle to protect our children from tobacco. This settlement between the state attorneys general and the tobacco companies is clearly an important step in the right direction for our country. It reflects the first time tobacco companies will be held financially accountable for the damage their product does to our nation's health.
Well, I think Richard's legacy is in the area of tobacco. Clearly, that's where people have seen his work. He leads by example. And I think that's really important about social justice and change and activism. And I think all those things he sort of epitomizes.
Dick is a man of action. I mean, he is an academic, he's a scholar, but that's not what he's about. He's about making things happen.
He's a cause guy, so he was worried about predatory gambling,
Climate change,
Tobacco control globally.
obesity.
I think he's really interested in guns.
I think the most valuable lesson is if you believe in a cause or a mission, then you should really think about it, strategize, and execute. And that's the great thing about Dick. It's not just a vision and a thought, it's actually how do you get there step by step.
Richard was as committed to Northeastern almost as tobacco. And so he spent 20 years on the faculty senate, being head of the Senate Agenda Committee, coming up with a core curriculum, all of these things because he thought it would make Northeastern a better place.
I met Dick Daynard on day one. He is a person who, for me, represents Northeastern.
Northeastern University School of Law, there's no question about it. The commitment to the public interest, the passion in the students and the passion in the faculty, it really was where he was meant to be. It couldn't have been a more perfect fit.
I'm really, really grateful for Dick and for Carol. Dick and Carol, we are thanking you. We love you.
That was wonderful. First up, we are so honored to welcome Mary Bonado, class of 1987, Civil Rights Project Director of Gay and Lesbian Advocates and Defenders, a legend in her own right. Mary is joining virtually. Welcome, Mary.
Thank you, Dean Hackney, and congratulations on your stewardship at Northeastern Law. Hello, everyone. Great video, and thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to thank Professor Daynard in person. Dick, congratulations on 50+ years of inspiring and mentoring students, including me. Thank you also for doggedly pursuing truth and justice under law, for dreaming big, doing big things, and making a difference in people's lives. So I took Professor Daynard's products liability class in the fall of 1985. The topic, no surprise, tobacco. He had just founded the tobacco products litigation project the year before, and the class was immediately enlisted in the enterprise. I loved the challenge. Cigarettes were this common and glamorized product, and the industry behind them was about as rich and powerful as any could be. How could any of us do anything about it? That he believed we could was a gift to us. He brought us into his creative thought process. So the class discussions were rich. He asked us to use our developing legal skills too. My paper for the class, and I actually found the evaluation in my attic, was about how to use the Mass Consumer Protection Statute, which allows for legal claims for unfair and deceptive acts in the marketplace, about how to use that against big tobacco for the harms that they have caused. And what he was showing us in the class was that no matter how big the target or how powerful the adversary, we had tools to do something about it. In the spring of the next year, spring of 1986, I worked for Professor Daynard as a research assistant. Part of my job was supporting his efforts in hosting a national conference of the Tobacco Products Liability Project at Northeastern Law. I attended the conference that weekend, and although much of it required background I did not have, I was struck by the power in the room from his pulling together a coalition of the willing, of the imagining, of the believing. This brain trust collaborated on litigation theories, strategized on defanging obstacles, and innovated together about legal and policy opportunities to rein in big tobacco. I also admired their commitment to unlocking what big tobacco was hiding and getting to the truth. Later, I came to realize that this conference was not only about building expertise and connections and insights, it was about building a movement. So Professor Daynard and the movement he has built and done so much to create has indeed accomplished a great deal and is still accomplishing a great deal. His approach has been an example and an inspiration to me. I've been fortunate in my work at GLBTQ legal advocates and defenders here in Boston, where I'm now in my third decade plus 1.5, to be part of building out a movement. So for example, when the Hawaii Supreme Court ruled in 1993, when I was barely 3 years on the job, ruled that a marriage case by 3 same-sex couples should not have been dismissed by the trial court and that the case should be remanded for a trial on the state's justifications, I was shocked and I was exhilarated. Getting to marriage for same-sex couples seemed like such a long-term and daunting project. People in the LGBTQ community were also divided. Some were inspired, others were terrified of the backlash that would and ultimately did come our way. Was this an opening or was this a disaster? What did I do? Turns out what I did was some of the same things Professor Daynard did. I called together a conference of attorneys from around New England on one weekend, and we met to talk about the Hawaii case, the decision, the remand, how to build out on this thunderbolt of justice and the hope and enthusiasm it sparked. I started looking at the law in all 6 New England states and enlisted law students and lawyers to help about state constitutions, relevant public policies, how the legislature could respond, and ultimately hundreds of issues. That was the beginning of creating a New England Brain Trust to achieve full-on family protections for LGBTQ plus people, including marriage in New England, where we had great success. So like our success and tobacco success, there's plenty more to do. But I always think fondly, with enormous gratitude to Professor Daynard for having the courage, creativity, and tenacity to take on the impossible and win. What a fantastic model. Thank you and best to you.
That was very inspirational. Now it is my pleasure to introduce Trustee Emeritus and retired Associate Justice of the Massachusetts Supreme Court, the Honorable Margot Boxford, class of 1973. Margot, please come forward.
I would say Mary is a hard act to follow, but it is a privilege and a pleasure to be here. I didn't realize it was 50, did you say 52 plus? Okay, I was still hung up on the 50th, but anyway, it is a great pleasure to be here. I saw the video before tonight, and I must say, watching you, Dick, stride so purposefully and dramatically and slowly across the bridge, it befits the hero of combating big tobacco. But I'm going to start back. I was in your second contracts class in 1970, and here I was, a year out of college, beginning my first year at what my father called that hippie law school in Boston, and being taught contracts by somebody who wasn't a whole lot older than I was, and frankly seemed a bit spacey. Dick was certainly smart, I could get that, but he wasn't what I expected in terms of a professor. And certainly I had zero idea that I was sitting in the presence of the future conceptual architect of this assault on big tobacco. So I'm feeling, in retrospect, very privileged. But I must say, you are also a very good contracts teacher. And for that, given my life as a state court judge, it turned out to be probably more helpful than if I had studied tobacco litigation. So I am very grateful to you for that and for many things. But obviously, the law school is only one aspect of Dick's Northeastern life. And as I learned in the years I did have the privilege of serving as a trustee, Dick's devotion and contributions to the entire university community are extraordinary. It was the stuff of legend back when I was a trustee, and I am sure that it continues to be. So I can also thank you for that. I can't say that Dick became a great friend during the time that I was in contracts class in 1970 to 71, but since then, Dick and Carol have become close friends of mine and my husband Steve's. There is a public health connection there, among other connections. So I feel very privileged to have known him and completely amazed that I, like Northeastern, have known him and benefited from his all the things that he is and does for more than 50 years. And I'm just hoping that there are 50 more to come. So thank you.
Thank you for those wonderful words, Margot. I think Dick would be the first to say that Mark Gottlieb, class of 1993, Executive Director of the Public Health Advocacy Institute, has been a most valued partner in accomplishing so many of their listed goals. Mark, please come forward.
Look at all these seeds. Good evening, everyone. On these rare occasions that I'm asked to speak, I generally keep it lighthearted. Safer option is to go for the laughs rather than risk causing laughter unintentionally, which has happened from time to time. But for me, getting the chance to talk about Dick Daynard's incredible career is no joke. Like many dozens, really, of Dick's former students, I owe my career and my passion for using law to improve our world to him. But unlike many of those former students, I've had the great fortune to work directly with Dick continuously since I took a work-study gig with my toxic torts professor 30 years ago. This gave me the chance to be with Dick, to be by his side, to watch and learn as his vision for transforming the public health landscape through litigation and policy advocacy, starting with the tobacco industry, began to be realized. It's hard to overstate how critically important Dick's vision, intellect, and ability to communicate was to the change in the status of the tobacco industry in our society. For decades and during the most delicate periods of change, almost nothing happened in this field that didn't run through Dick Daynard. Bringing together the best public health experts with key legal advocates, all vetted by Dick, at annual conferences here at Northeastern for about a quarter of a century was one, and creating a legal reporter on tobacco litigation with an IBM Selectric, bringing the state attorneys general into the fray, resulting in that $300 billion or so settlement, helping to get the industry documents and industry insiders to where they needed to be, and producing an astounding amount of influential scholarship. You know, this is the stuff I got to observe, but it's really only scratching the surface. You know, what I saw is a gifted educator who always cared a lot about his students and never failed to see the potential that they had to contribute by showing them how law can change the health of the world and how to build a movement. I've had the chance to observe his inexhaustible and dare I say, competitive intellect in action. But, you know, if he's proven wrong about something, he'll own up to it and he'll learn from it, because Dick never stops learning and never stops teaching. Things I didn't really see, you know, include the development of the law and policy doctoral program here at Northeastern, which used to be the Law, Policy, and Society program. You know, when I long ago, when I used to maintain his CV, or help maintain his CV, it was always a bit of a chore to fit in all those abbreviations for his degrees in there. Because in addition to the JD from across the river, This Bronx science graduate also holds an AB summa cum laude and a master's in social policy from Columbia, as well as a PhD in law and social policy from another school on the other side of the Mass Ave Bridge. I wasn't with him as he crisscrossed the globe with human rights scholar and advocate Rangada de Silva de Alves, seeking to ensure that the right to health, a fundamental human right, would be understood in the context of tobacco prevention and policy development and women's rights. I didn't travel with Dick to the many conferences of parties and negotiating sessions that for the World Health Organization negotiated framework convention on tobacco control, where he battled industry interests, including our own government officials, alongside Corporate Accountability International. I also didn't observe his many years of toiling in the trenches with tobacco industry forces at the American Society of Heating, Refrigerating, and Air Conditioning Engineers, ASHRAE, as he fought for years for indoor air standards that did not allow for tobacco smoke. I also never attended any of the faculty Senate Agenda Committee meetings when Dick was chair. Never saw him in action when he served as an associate dean for academic affairs at the law school. These are only things I knew about from gleaning over his always densely packed and barely legible calendar over the years. Busy, busy man. That walk that they had in the video was in super slow motion, because in reality, Dick walks very fast and gets an awful lot done. And he and Carol are amazing philanthropists supporting impactful institutions, particularly Northeastern, as well as the arts and, of course, public health. And as for me, I've never left that work-study job, really. Instead, I've had the privilege to call Dick my colleague, my boss, and my mentor for 30 of the 52-plus years that he's been giving it his all here at Northeastern. And I suppose I'm not alone in celebrating my own good fortune as we all celebrate Dick's incredible career as an educator, a scholar, an advocate, a leader, and an all-around mensch. Congratulations, Professor.
This is all a true testament to Dick's power as a teacher. Among Dick's most trusted colleagues and friends is Allan Brandt, professor of the history of science, and Amalie Moses Kass, professor of the history of medicine at Harvard University, and a member of the Public Health Institute's board of directors. Welcome, Allan.
Thanks so much, Dean Hackney. It's really, I have to say, we're honoring Dick, but I'm so honored to be part of this event tonight. And as you've already heard, and I'm not sure I can say it nearly as well as my colleagues have, Dick is really a genuinely remarkable person, and has had an impact that any of us would wish to emulate in our own careers and personal lives. I first met Dick when I was a young faculty member at Harvard, and I had just started working on a book on the history of tobacco. And as all of you know, tobacco gets into just about everything, but the thought was very clear by this time in the early 1980s that this was the most dangerous legal product in the history of the world, and it was also one of the most fundamentally unregulated products in the history of the world. And Dick planned to do something about it, and it was so characteristic. Dick called me up shortly after I came to Harvard, and not only were they still ringing bells at Northeastern Law School, but there was no internet, there was no email at that time, but Dick hunted out people who he thought he could recruit to the cause, and he came to see me in that context. I just started working on this, but Dick said, we have these lawyers and we have these cases, and this is going to change what goes on with smoking here in the United States and ultimately around the world. And I remember I was a bit of a, snotty kid. And I said to him, I don't think you'll ever win. And here's why. And I said, this is a country totally committed to notions of individual responsibility. We know people get sick and we know that cigarettes have caused it, but we will always blame individual smokers for the harms and illness and death that occurs. And I said, I'm a student of American culture and history, and I wish you were right, but I just can't believe you could ever be right about this. And what will the companies say? And I always had this idea that I would invent myself as a RJR lawyer and say, we feel terrible about what happened to Mrs. Chipolone, but she knew there was a controversy. She had decided to smoke. She had tried to quit, and millions of Americans have quit smoking. And there was a label on the package. So how can you hold our company responsible for Mrs. Chipolone, who was a lovely, determined, independent individual, for what happened to her? And by the way, there's a lot of debate about whether smoking caused her cancer or not. And this was the argument, and it was out there all the time. And Dick, more than anyone else, said, I will not abide by that outcome. I will not abide by that argument. And so we continued in a kind of colloquy about this, and people would come to see me, both from the attorneys for the companies and Dick's friends who were suing, and they would say, would you be an expert witness in one of these cases? And of course, I knew I wasn't going to work for the tobacco industry, even though I imagined that maybe I would finally get a condominium in Boston, but I wasn't going to do that. But Dick's friends and colleagues and the literally hundreds of attorneys he had recruited to the cause would come see me, and I would say, well, I'm working on my book. I want it to be scholarly. I don't want to be in an adversarial situation. Maybe I'll think about it when I finish the book. And Dick was also aware that I just couldn't finish the book. And he would come see me, and we would see each other, but in the gentlest and most supportive and really a kind mentor. Would ask me how it was going, what the issues were, how I was using the documents, which Dick and his fellow lawyers had recovered. And I have to say, it's the first major industry, in some ways the only major industry, where as a result of this work, we know what they did. We know what they were thinking. We know what they were doing. We know the lies that they told. And for me as a historian, this was an incredible gift to get a window into corporate life and deception through the course of the 20th century, only made possible by the cases that Dick had supported in so many different ways. It's a remarkable story, and people use these archives all the time, but they only became accessible through the litigation. And now we have documents from Facebook or documents from Big Oil, and they're protected because of the kind of litigation that Dick was really crucial in inventing. So I would always beg off. I always said no. But Dick, among his other, he seemed so mild-mannered until I saw him in the film, but Dick was working me over many years. And one of the things I think people understand, it's great to be celebrating this 50-plus anniversary because Dick was in the long game. And it wasn't something, well, this would work or this wouldn't work, and now I'm doing something else. Dick really is the kind of thinker and advocate and intellectual and scholar that really says, I may not win today, but this is just the beginning. And Dick was a dog with a bone. You couldn't stop him, and he wouldn't take no for an answer. So early in this century, 3 or 4 lawyers came to see me from the Department of Justice, and they wanted me to testify. And I had sort of learned how to beg off. But this time I called Dick up and I said, this is a really good case. It's the United States against Philip Morris. It'll be in federal district court. And Dick really gave me the courage to do it. And it wasn't something that was characteristic of my character. And I can't tell you how grateful I am to Dick for having stayed with me, for having held my hand, for having been an incredible intellectual interlocutor. And he has characteristics that now have been described. He's a person of incredible decency and integrity. He's a great thinker and intellectual, and he's a remarkable advocate and activist. And, we're living in perilous times. Many of my students have become cynical about the world. And the story I would tell them is about Dick Daynard, who took on the most powerful interests, pretty much at one time just about by himself, and saved hundreds of millions of lives for people already and for people in the future. And it's such a remarkable story. And you've been incredibly lucky to have him here at Northeastern, but I can assure you his influence goes to every corner of the world where children won't be smokers. So, Dick, I just can't thank you enough.
Thank you for that wonderful testament, Allan. And now it is my honor to introduce Northeastern University President Joseph E. Aoun. President Aoun and Dick share a long history of working together on key university initiatives, both through the Public Health Advocacy Institute and during Dick's years as chair of the Faculty Senate Agenda Committee. President Aoun.
Thank you. Thank you. It's always difficult to come at the end before you. And so let me mention something personal. When I came to Northeastern, as I mentioned, Dick was one of the first people I met. And I was dreading meeting him because, I knew about him. I knew what he was doing, what he has done. I knew about his impact. And I said, is he going to treat me like he treated the tobacco companies? So I tried in my first meeting to assure him, first of all, that I don't smoke, that I don't like fatty things, except some cheese, and third, that I am in a listening mode. And he became my teacher. He started teaching me about the law school first, how special this law school is, and what an incredible asset to the university it is. So I bought that. I said, look, this is expected. He's going to promote the law school. I'm a new president, and he's going to tell me about the wonder of the wonderful things that are happening at the law school. Then little by little, he said, but you see, this law school could have existed only at Northeastern. And I said, why? And then he started explaining to me about the essence of Northeastern and what it represents. And that was a transformation moment for me. So we started on the good side of the equation. He was my teacher, and he stayed as a teacher for me for a long time. And then on a regular basis, we worked together on many issues in the university way before he became the head of the Senate. He used to call me to tell me, look, I think that there is an issue here, and we have to think about it together. I even remember at 2 o'clock in the morning, I was in the Middle East, and he called me, and I couldn't say no to this call. So at 2 o'clock in the morning, we spent 2 hours discussing an issue. a major issue in the university. And as usual, you said that he's a dog with a bone. Actually, he's a dog with many bones. Because that issue was really a turning point for us at the university. I won't remind you of what it is, but he helped me think it through, and we were able to solve it together. When Dick became head of the Senate, that was an interesting moment for our relationship, because he knew very well that he was representing the faculty, but also here I am, his student. So he wanted to balance being the advocate and being the teacher. And that was an interesting balance, because in some ways he pushed forward and he pushed back. And it wasn't easy at some points, but he always looked at it from the point of view of justice and what we should do because that's the right thing to do. So, advocate, pioneer, activist, and teacher. What about the philanthropy? The philanthropy is something that Carol and Dick did together. And in fact, it was enormously important for us at the university, at all levels. Margot, you were on the board and you're a trustee emerita. And we celebrated Carol and Dick because they were investing in the institution they were part of. They believed in the institution. They believed in the students. They believed in the law school, but they also believed in the institution, in the university. And that was precious. Because of them, we started a campaign to raise funds for the university, for issues that are important to our faculty, our staff, and our students. They were the models, and they carried the rest of the university. It became a tradition after that. That's what they have done. So you see, we can spend many hours talking about Dick, about Carol, and we are going to do it for the next 50 years. So let me close by saying, Dick, I owe you a lot. I don't have a law degree, but you are my teacher. And Carol and Dick, thank you for leading the way. We are grateful to you, and we owe you a lot. Thank you very much.
Thanks for those powerful words, President Aoun. And now, your moment. Dick told me to introduce it as your 3 minutes of rebuttal in true litigator form, but the man of the hour and the half. Okay.
Well, of course, this will be all about thanks, and so let me just begin with, well, people mentioned the film. The film made me look, determined and walking slowly. As Mark pointed out, that's not, so the wonderful film to begin with, and the magic of filmmaking. Let me begin. Obviously, I want to thank all of my family, my friends, my colleagues, my students, past and present. This was really wonderful. Going to begin with the 4 M's. 4 M's, so we're only 3 M's speaking, but Miel. Miel is the one who made this all happen. Obviously, with a lot of help from some wonderful people, all kinds of different, positions here at the university. But it's Miel who pulled it all together, and that's really wonderful. Mary Bonado. So, right. So all I can say about my relationship to Mary is that, to the extent that I was an inspiration for what she accomplished, the extraordinary, I assume everybody knows here, her extraordinary role in gay marriage, among many other LGBTQ legal victories. But that, of course, was the most famous and most unexpected for most people. If I had some role to play in that, that would have been enough. The Hebrew word for that is dayenu. Dayenu, that would have been enough. So thank you, Mary. This was, it's a, I'm thinking about, John Lewis's notion of, good trouble. So if I, if this is, if you learn from me how to do some good trouble, that's great. Margot. Now, Margot was my student not only in contracts, but also in an upper level, very small upper level seminar. And the people who are students here all know that, we don't do grades and, A, B's or numbers. We do pass, fail, and then we write things. And, so I've written, I've lots and lots of students I've been terribly enthusiastic about and written all kinds of nice things. Margot is probably the only one who, or certainly the first one, but I still remember maybe the preeminent one where what I said was judicious. I mean, here she is, a second-year law student. She's judicious on the one hand. On the other hand, you have to consider this and you have to consider that, and then you put it together, and then this is probably the right answer. Whoa! Whoa! Yes, you got it, as he has it. So if a law school performance could be predictive of an extraordinary career, that did it. That was it, and what a wonderful career this has been. Mark now. Mark has the position of executive director. I have the position of president. Anybody who knows anything about any organization knows that between the executive director and the president, who does the work? So Mark has been, an extraordinary, leader and doer. We're small enough that he can't just lead; he has to lead and do. And has been doing that for, 27 years since coming to PHAI for most of the time as the executive director. Allan, well, this is, it is wonderful to have you have looking back at 50 plus years, and how do you think about it? What's the discipline for thinking about the past in some kind of rigorous way? That's called history. So to have a truly distinguished historian here speaking, that was really absolutely wonderful. And his book, The Cigarette Century, is a landmark. And thank you very much, Allan. And then, as to Joseph, all I can say is that, Joseph, your extraordinary vision that you came here with and refined in your 15 years here has absolutely transformed Northeastern University and made it the school it is today, and the university is today, and the even greater, more wonderful university it's becoming. So thank you all.
Carol and Dick, Izzy, do you want to come here? You're restless. You want to do something, and I agree with you. So do you want to give a speech or you want to give a gift? What do you think?
A gift.
A gift. So here it is. Let's start with this one. Okay. So could you, let's turn around so that the camera can capture that. So do you want to give a speech now? No? Okay. So this is for you, Carol and Dick. I hope you enjoy it. And we are eternally grateful to you, both.
It is inside.
Superman is inside.
Kind of pop out. You want to hold this box?
Don't tell me. Whoa.
My goodness. No.
You like it?
Oh, Izzy, but you can pop these things.
Yeah, do you know how to do that? Here, you can listen. Here.
This may take about a half hour. No, this is fine. I think I've finally gotten to.
Bag. It's the bag within the box within the bag. Oh, it's a picture frame.
Yeah. Right.
Okay.
So
It says,
celebrating
50 years. Okay, Northeastern Law University.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Carol. Closing.
It's a card as well. So again, thank you all for attending this wonderful occasion and our celebration of Dick and Carol and Izzy. So there's plenty of food and drink, and please mix, mingle, and enjoy, and say more great words to our great friend and colleague, Dick Daynard. Thank you.